Before starting this video, I do want to give a thank you to my patrons that support the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you in the link down below. So with that, let's get into today's video. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on Pub Slump MTG. So with this video, I'm going to be going over Shelob, Child of Ungoliant. So this character in Lord of the Rings is actually pretty special to me. On a little side note, I actually named one of my cats Shelob. Her nickname is Spider. We call her Spider more, but originally we did call her Shelob. So I knew immediately when I saw Shelob, Child of Ungoliant spoiled, I had to make a deck around her. So let's read what Shelob does. She does have Death Touch and Ward 2. Other spiders you control have Death Touch and Ward 2. Whenever another creature dealt damage this turn by a spider you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature except it's a food artifact. So from a lore perspective, I do think it's kind of weird that she's a spider lord necessarily giving other spiders these abilities, because she's more of a glutton. She's just by herself, just trying to consume as much food as possible. Other than that, this is absolutely an insane spider tribal commander, mainly because we're making food tokens out of our opponent's creatures. So first, I do want to talk about includes. The first part I will talk about though is something that you may not want to consider playing. I've been seeing a lot of deck lists have Academy manufactured in the deck lists. So when you do make a food token, you will make 3 different tokens of a treasure token and also a clue token and a food token. When you do make that food token, it will be a replacement effect, making you just a food token and not a copy of that creature that your opponent controls. I will say though, Devoted Druid is absolutely crazy in the deck, mainly because if you kill it with one of your spiders, you can essentially make it into a food token, and because it is a food token, it doesn't have that type of a creature, so it doesn't have that 0-2 toughness. So when Devoted Druid is on the battlefield as a food token, you could tap it and then untap it, put a -1/-1 counter on it. But because it's not a creature anymore, you can constantly do that back and forth, untapping it, tapping for a green mana until you have infinite green mana. Another suggestion I would put in this deck is a little pricey, but it is worth it with Parallel Lives. Hopefully it gets reprinted in the Commander Masters set. So when you do make creatures into those food tokens based off of the spiders killing it, you can put twice that many onto the battlefield instead. So Parallel Lives will definitely do a lot of work in your deck. I also thought of Doubling Season, but again, it's like $85–90. It's absolutely ridiculous with the price. I would mention that here, but if you wanted to put it under your deck, you may as well. Another card that definitely crept up in price, but is really good in this deck is Arachnogenesis. So it is a pretty great fog effect. For 3 mana, put X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. You prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. For me personally, I would probably wait for a reprint on this one because it's about $35–40. It's kind of ridiculous about the price on this card. I think it's just pretty niche. So if I were you, I would probably wait for a reprint. You could proxy it in the meantime. However, another card I do want to discuss with you is Curse of Clinging Webs. So honestly, this is pretty good for a spider deck. It's the Nora Curse. It does have Enchant Player. Whenever a non-token creature enchanted player controlled dies, exile it and you create a 1/2 screen spider creature token with reach. So I could see this working great, especially if somebody is playing aristocrat strategies when they're having non-token creatures entering the graveyard all the time. You could use this ability so that they get exiled and you'll make a 1/2 spider token on the battlefield. This is great value, especially for those aristocrat strategies. Another card I did want to bring your attention to is Peregrine Took. So I do like this. When you're making tokens on the battlefield, you also make a food token on top of it. There will be a little bit of a food theme in the deck, mainly because Shelob makes foods all the time. Even though the weird thing about this is Shelob never encounters Peregrine Took in the books at all, by even a mile. But since we're going in a little bit of a food strategy, I thought I might as well include it. Another big focus on the deck I do want to talk about is getting value out of your removal. So if we have a lot of spiders on the battlefield and they have Death Touch, we might as well use cards like Ram Through, Bite Down, and Stew the Conies. So these, like many other cards, have that kind of ability. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to a target creature you don't control, essentially. And if Shelob is on the battlefield and we have a couple spiders on the battlefield, they will have Death Touch. When they deal damage to another creature, they will instantly die because they have Death Touch. So we could absolutely utilize these spells so that when we deal damage to other creatures, we can make them into a food token on our side. There are more cards like this in the deck I do want to discuss, but these are the the main ones I did want to focus on. In a similar fashion, we can make our removal repeatable by having Verdant Longbow. So when you do equip this to a creature you control like a spider, this creature deals 1 damage to any target by tapping it. Again, when we attach this to one of our spiders we control and we have Shelob on the battlefield, we can constantly ping our creatures or even other creatures that opponents control so that we can make them into food tokens. I did also want to discuss Thornbite Staff. This is probably one of the best cards in the deck. So this reads, equipped creature has pay 2 and tap it. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. It also does have whenever a creature is put into the graveyard from play, untap this creature. So the reason why I would say this is definitely one of the best cards in the deck is mainly because if we have spiders on the battlefield and Shelob on the battlefield, we could deal a damage to a creature. That creature dies because our spiders have death touch. Then whenever a creature goes into the graveyard from play, you untap this specific creature so that you can repeat it back and forth so that you can clear the board. And on top of that, you're going to get a lot of food tokens out of Shelob when you do this ability. So definitely this is the biggest auto include in the deck for sure. However, you did come here specifically for spiders. What kind of spiders do we want to cover the earth with? So I will be quite honest, there's a lot of vanilla spiders that just have reach. There's also some great spiders like Chainweb Arachnir and also Silk/Spider. I like both of these spiders because, for example, when Chainweb Arachnir enters the battlefield, it could deal damage equal to its power to a target creature with flying and opponent controls. So of course it will have death touch when Shelob is on the battlefield. And when Silk/Spider is on the battlefield, we could constantly go into that ability of dealing X damage to each creature with flying. So if our opponents are playing Dragon Tribal or they're playing Bird Tribal, they better watch out for these cards because we're going to be putting a lot of work in. But if your opponents like to play Spellslinger, Arasta of the Endless Web is absolutely insane. It has reach, and whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So when you think about it, you have 3 different opponents. Most likely a couple of them are going to be playing a lot of instant and sorcery spells, so you're going to be getting so much tokens out of this, it's absolutely going to be disgusting. Another card you may want to put in the deck is Loth Spider Queen. It's an awesome planeswalker mainly for Spider Tribal and also in Aristocrats in general. It has a great static ability. Whenever a creature you control dies, put a loyalty counter on Loth Spider Queen. This has great utility, giving you card draw. Also on top of that, you create 2 2/1 black spider creature tokens with menace and reach. You do also have a -8 ability you can get to pretty quickly. You have an emblem. Whenever an opponent is dealt combat damage by 1 or more creatures you control, if that player lost less than 8 life this turn, they lose life equal to the difference. However, if you don't want to get to that -8 ability, you could just keep putting spiders out on the battlefield, sacrificing them so that you can put more loyalty counters on Loth so that you can keep on repeating that ability to make more spiders. So she's absolutely a great include, no question about it. So one last spider card I do want to mention is Ishkana Graft Widow. So it does have reach and delirium when it enters the battlefield. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, put 3 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield. It also does have an ability of paying 6 and a black. Target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. So for example, if you made Devoted Druid a food token off of Shelob's ability, you could drain people for an insane amount of life. You would essentially just have to pay black on that ability if you had Devoted Druid as a food token. So you could possibly end the game based off of that creature alone. There's also some other ways you could win the game. I wanted to win more thematically, mainly with poison, because some spiders like Shelob are poisonous. I want a way to win the game. One way we could do that is having Finn the Fangbearer in the deck. So Finn reads, whenever a creature you controlled with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So if we amassed a huge board of spiders on the battlefield, Shelob will give them all Death Touch, and with Finn's ability we could win the game off of poison. So when I first saw Shelob giving other spiders Death Touch, I absolutely thought, you know, Finn the Fangbearer would be an absolute great include because we're swarming the opponents with a bunch of spiders, so of course we had to add him in there. Another way we could win with poison counters is actually pretty simple. With Triumph of the Hordes, until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain Trample and Infect. So with that said, Shelob by herself is an 8/8. On top of that, if you give it +1/+1, our opponents will get 9 poison counters just off of Shelob alone, and if we do have a huge army of spiders in our arsenal, we could swing in for a lot more poison counters. So again, that's more of a funny way to win the game because spiders are poisonous. Of course, I wanted to add a little bit of theme with the spiders. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Shelob, Child of Ungoliant. I would say this is my biggest takeaway from the commander. I do feel like it's going to be the de facto Spider Tribal commander for now on. I mean, unless they come out with a crazier version of a Spider Tribal leader, I do feel like Shelob is absolutely perfect. Just giving your Spider's protection alone and Death Touch is absolutely incredible. On a side note, thematically, I did also add in Smeagol Helpful Guide, mainly because he was guiding the hobbits straight to Shelob so that Shelob could eat them, and then Smeagol will get his chance to take the Precious again. Also on top of that, it does have a great ability at the beginning of your end step. If a creature died under your control this turn, the ring tempts you. We can sacrifice one of our spiders so that the ring can tempt us, so that we can get lands off of our opponents, so that we can then cast Shelob, because Shelob is 6 mana. She is pretty expensive. So Golem does provide some great ramp for Shelob to enter the battlefield. However, let me know down below, what do you think of Shelob, Child of Ungoliant? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.